Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to talk about a topic that is deeply personal, incredibly powerful, and universally needed: self-love. In a world where negativity, comparison, and toxicity often creep into our lives through relationships, workplaces, social media, and even our own minds, self-love is not just a luxury, it's your greatest weapon. When we think of protection, we often imagine physical barriers, locks on our doors, fences around our homes, maybe even passwords on our devices. But one of the most important forms of protection we can have isn't visible, it's emotional protection. And that begins with self-love. Self-love creates an internal filter through which you evaluate the world. It gives you the strength to discern what deserves your energy and what doesn't. When you love yourself, you develop an intuitive understanding of what feels right for your well-being and what threatens your peace. You no longer accept harmful behavior just to keep the peace or avoid conflict, because your inner peace matters more than temporary comfort. This kind of self-protection doesn't come from walls built out of fear, but from boundaries rooted in respect. It's about knowing your limits, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and refusing to compromise them for the sake of pleasing others. When you practice self-love, you're not being cold or distant. You're simply choosing not to allow toxic influences to infiltrate the sacred space you've created within yourself. Self-love protects you from manipulation, gaslighting, emotional abuse, and even subtle disrespect. It acts as a radar, alerting you when someone's energy or intentions don't align with your values or your sense of self-worth. It says, I see what's happening here, and I choose to protect myself rather than endure it. People often associate love with openness and vulnerability, and it is. But what they forget is that true love, especially the love you give yourself, also includes fierce loyalty to your own soul. It means having your own back, standing up for yourself when needed, and creating a life where you're not just surviving, but thriving, unshaken by the chaos around you. Without self-love, we may find ourselves constantly seeking validation, giving too many chances, ignoring red flags, and making excuses for others at our own expense. But with self-love, we shift from defense to discernment. We no longer fight battles that aren't ours to fight, nor do we allow others to determine our value. Self-love isn't loud or aggressive. It's quiet, steady, and deeply powerful. It whispers, I am worthy, even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. And in that affirmation, there is safety, there is peace, and most importantly, there is protection. Toxicity often doesn't start with loud chaos. It starts subtly, in the quiet moments, when we question our own value. When our self-worth is fragile or underdeveloped, we become more susceptible to accepting unhealthy behavior, not because we enjoy it, but because we've been conditioned to believe we don't deserve better. Low self-worth creates the perfect environment for toxicity to grow. It's like leaving the door unlocked to negativity, manipulation, disrespect, and emotional neglect. People who thrive on control, power, or belittling others are drawn to those who don't fully recognize their own worth, because it allows them to impose their narrative onto someone else. When you don't see your value, you might tolerate being talked down to, ignored, or even used. You might mistake criticism for love, attention for respect, or bare minimum effort for deep care. That's not your fault. It's the result of years of internalized doubt, comparison, or possibly past trauma. But it's something you can unlearn. Think about how a toxic person reacts when met with someone who knows their worth. They can't manipulate them as easily. They can't play games or twist truths, because a person rooted in self-love recognizes those patterns and refuses to engage. That's the power of self-worth. It breaks the cycle. Toxic environments, whether in personal relationships, workspaces, families, or even friendships, rely on silence, self-doubt, and fear. If you constantly feel the need to shrink yourself, walk on eggshells, or prove your worth, that's a sign the environment isn't nurturing your growth. It's feeding off your insecurity. But when you begin to build your self-worth, piece by piece, you start to shift the balance. You begin to say no to mistreatment, even if your voice shakes. You start distancing yourself from people who drain you rather than pour into you. You stop seeking permission to feel whole because you realize that wholeness has always been yours to claim. And the more you strengthen your self-worth, the more your energy changes. Toxic people may still try to get close, but they won't stay long, because what they feed on no longer lives in you. You no longer dance to the rhythm of someone else's dysfunction. Instead, you move to the steady, empowering beat of your own self-respect. Toxicity has no power where confidence exists. It cannot survive in spaces where people know their boundaries, understand their value, and honor their peace. That's why self-worth isn't just a mindset, it's a form of quiet resistance, a daily act of reclaiming your power. Standards are not rules you impose on others. They are reflections of how you see yourself. They are the expectations you hold for how you deserve to be treated, how you show up in relationships, and how you allow people to engage with your energy. And the foundation of all healthy standards? Self-love. When you truly love yourself, you no longer accept the bare minimum. You no longer beg for clarity, for consistency, or for respect. Instead, those things become non-negotiable. Not because you're hard to please, but because you finally understand your value. You no longer make excuses for people who continuously hurt you, because self-love reminds you that your heart is not a place for repeated injury. Without self-love, it's easy to lower your standards out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of rejection, fear that maybe you're asking for too much. But the truth is, you're not asking for too much. You're just asking the wrong people. The right people will never feel burdened by your boundaries. They'll respect them because they can see that you respect yourself. Think of self-love as the foundation and your standards as the house you build upon it. If the foundation is shaky, if you're unsure of your worth or constantly seeking validation, your standards will crumble the moment someone challenges them. But when that foundation is solid, your standards become unshakable. You don't need to explain or defend them because you're not trying to prove anything. You're simply living in alignment with who you are. Self-love doesn't mean building walls to keep people out. It means building doors that only open for those who bring peace, kindness, and sincerity. It means making space in your life only for what uplifts you. It means saying, "This is how I deserve to be treated," and walking away unapologetically from anything that falls short of that. Your standards, when rooted in self-love, become less about ego and more about protection. They are not about punishing others or controlling them. They're about guiding yourself toward what nourishes you. They're how you filter the world, how you discern love from manipulation, attention from respect, and noise from truth. The most powerful part of this is that your standards don't just affect how others treat you. They influence how you treat yourself. When you have high standards, you're more likely to choose relationships that reflect your values, jobs that align with your purpose, and environments that support your growth. You stop settling in every area of life because you know what you're worth, and you're no longer afraid to claim it. Self-love teaches you that you don't have to beg to be chosen, tolerated, or loved. You get to be selective, intentional, and self-respecting. That's not being too much. That's being enough. One of the clearest signs that you love yourself is your ability to walk away from what no longer serves your growth, your peace, or your worth. But let's be honest, walking away isn't easy. It takes immense courage, emotional maturity, and a deep sense of self-awareness. Most of all, it takes self-love. Self-love is what gives you the clarity to recognize when a relationship, environment, or situation is no longer healthy. It's that inner voice that gently whispers, "You deserve better," even when your heart is still holding on. It's the strength to close the door, even when your mind is full of doubt and your emotions are tangled in history and habit. When you don't love yourself, you may stay in places where your light is dimmed, where you are tolerated rather than celebrated, or where you have to shrink to be accepted. You may stay out of fear of being alone, fear of the unknown, or fear that maybe this is the best you'll ever get. But self-love changes that narrative. It teaches you that peace is better than pretending, that solitude is better than disrespect, that starting over is better than staying stuck. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't make you heartless or ungrateful. It means you've reached a point where you finally understand the cost of staying. And sometimes staying costs you your mental health, your joy, your dreams, your self-respect. That's a price you can no longer afford to pay when you start loving yourself. Self-love doesn't just give you the ability to leave, it gives you the wisdom to know when to leave. It shifts your focus from trying to fix others to prioritizing your own healing. It reminds you that you are not responsible for anyone else's behavior, only for how long you choose to allow it in your life. And when the energy isn't mutual, when the effort isn't reciprocated, or when the environment becomes toxic, self-love says it's time to let go. And yes, sometimes walking away is painful. It may feel like a loss at first. But the truth is, every time you walk away from what doesn't align with your worth, you are walking toward your peace, your power, and your purpose. You create space for better. You give the universe permission to show you what's possible when you stop settling. Self-love empowers you to walk away without burning bridges, without bitterness, and without needing to justify your choices. It allows you to leave with grace, knowing that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. And here's the beautiful part. The more you practice walking away from what drains you, the more you begin to attract what nourishes you. You no longer chase validation, you stand in your truth. You no longer beg for breadcrumbs, you sit at your own table. Walking away becomes an act of self-celebration, not self-abandonment, because you finally know you are worth walking towards something better. There is a common misconception that self-love means always being confident, always being happy, always having it all together. But real, deep, transformative self-love isn't about pretending to be okay. It's about giving yourself permission to not be okay and choosing to heal anyway. When we don't truly love ourselves, we tend to hide our pain. We suppress our emotions, tuck away our trauma, and wear masks just to appear strong. We tell ourselves we have to move on or stay positive, even when we're breaking inside. But that isn't healing, it's hiding. And anything you hide, you can't fully heal. Self-love, on the other hand, invites you to be radically honest with yourself. It says, yes, you've been hurt. Yes, you carry scars. Yes, there are things you wish you could forget. And then it says, but you are still worthy. You are still lovable. And you deserve the time, space, and grace to heal. Healing isn't linear. It's messy, layered, and often uncomfortable. It asks you to revisit wounds, confront fears, and unlearn patterns that no longer serve you. But when rooted in self-love, healing becomes an act of empowerment rather than punishment. You begin to see your pain not as something to be ashamed of, but as part of your story, something you can learn from, rise from, and eventually grow beyond. Self-love creates a safe internal space for you to process your emotions without judgment. It's what allows you to cry without guilt, to rest without feeling lazy, and to set boundaries without feeling selfish. It's the voice that says, you don't have to pretend for anyone, not even yourself. And it's important to understand that healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to yourself, the version of you that existed before the world tried to break you down, before you were told you weren't enough, before you learned to doubt your own worth. It's about peeling back the layers of pain, shame, and fear to rediscover the strength that's always been there. Self-love means choosing healing even when it's hard. It means staying with yourself when your first instinct is to run from the pain, from the truth, from the work. It means saying, I'm not going to ignore this anymore. I'm going to face it because I matter that much. And here's the beautiful part. When you start to heal through self-love, you begin to release the weight of things that were never yours to carry. You let go of guilt that was projected onto you. You unlearn the lie that being strong means being silent. You realize that vulnerability is not weakness, it's courage. You stop hiding. You stop pretending, you show up as you are, and in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. Healing through self-love isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about honoring all the parts of you, even the ones that still hurt, and choosing to keep going. It's about looking at your wounds with compassion instead of shame, and knowing deep down that your story doesn't end with pain, it transforms because of it. Self-love isn't a destination you reach and then check off your list. It's a daily commitment, a continuous, conscious practice. It's not something you feel once and then forever hold on to. It's something you must choose over and over again, especially on the days when it feels the hardest. There will be days when you look in the mirror and doubt yourself, days when your past creeps back in, whispering lies, days when the weight of the world feels heavier than usual. On those days, self-love is not the loud voice of confidence. It's the quiet decision to still be kind to yourself, to still show up for yourself, even when no one else does. It's easy to love yourself when things are going well, when you're achieving, when you're being praised or celebrated. But the true test of self-love is how you treat yourself in your low moments, in the silence, in the struggle, in the stillness. Do you criticize yourself or comfort yourself? Do you abandon your needs or honor them? Self-love as a daily commitment means making small, intentional choices that support your well-being. It might look like setting a boundary, saying no without guilt, resting when you're tired, nourishing your body with food that fuels you, or speaking to yourself with the same gentleness you offer others. It's in those consistent, seemingly small moments that your relationship with yourself is either built up or broken down. This commitment doesn't mean perfection. Some days you'll falter. You might fall back into old patterns, overextend yourself, or engage in self-doubt. But self-love doesn't punish you for slipping. It meets you where you are. It says, that wasn't your best moment, but you're still worthy. Let's try again tomorrow. That's the beauty of commitment. It allows room for imperfection while staying rooted in intention. Committing to self-love daily also means choosing to grow. It's not just about being content with who you are. It's about loving yourself enough to evolve, to break cycles, to step into your potential. You challenge yourself not from a place of lack, but from a place of belief. You push yourself gently, knowing that growth and grace can coexist. Over time, these daily decisions add up. You begin to notice that your inner dialogue becomes softer, your confidence grows more stable, and your boundaries become more natural. The things that once triggered you lose their power. Why? Because your love for yourself has become consistent, unshakable, lived in. Self-love is not about grand gestures or one-time affirmations. It's in the way you take care of your heart, your body, your time, and your energy every single day. It's in showing up for yourself again and again, even when no one's watching. Because deep down, you know you are your longest commitment. Emotional resilience isn't about being unaffected by life. It's about being able to feel deeply, to stumble, to struggle, and still rise again. And at the heart of that strength is self-love. Because self-love gives you the internal foundation to weather emotional storms without completely losing yourself in them. Life will test you, people will disappoint you, circumstances will shift unexpectedly, you'll be hurt, you'll feel misunderstood, you'll question your choices. But when you love yourself, you develop a kind of inner stability that helps you navigate all of that without completely breaking down. You begin to trust yourself, to trust that no matter what happens externally, you will be there for you. Self-love is what cushions the fall. It's the thing that catches you when everything else feels uncertain. When you've built a relationship with yourself that's grounded in compassion and honesty, you don't fear failure in the same way. You don't fear rejection or loss as intensely, because you know that your worth isn't dependent on external validation or outcome. You know that no matter what, you are still whole. Resilience doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means allowing yourself to feel it, move through it, and still return to your center. And self-love is that center. It's the reminder that your identity is not rooted in your worst day, that you are more than a breakup, more than a mistake, more than a rough season. It's what keeps you from spiraling into self-blame or shame when things go wrong. Without self-love, setbacks can feel like proof that we're not enough. We internalize failure as identity. We begin to think we deserve the pain we're experiencing. But when you cultivate self-love, you start to view challenges differently. You understand that pain doesn't make you unworthy, it makes you human. You begin to use your experiences as stepping stones, not stumbling blocks. And emotional resilience doesn't just serve you, it also affects the way you show up for others. When you're emotionally grounded in self-love, you're less reactive. You don't lash out from a place of insecurity. You're able to hold space for discomfort, both yours and others. You communicate better, set healthier boundaries, and respond instead of explode. Why? Because you've learned to regulate yourself from the inside out. This kind of resilience is also what helps you detach from toxic dynamics. You stop being afraid of confrontation because your peace matters more than avoiding discomfort. You stop holding on to relationships out of fear because your own love has become a more reliable source of comfort than anyone else's attention or approval. Self-love teaches you that it's okay to be soft and strong at the same time. That resilience isn't about pretending nothing hurts, but about allowing the hurt without letting it define you. It's about coming back to yourself again and again, even when life tries to pull you apart. Over time, self-love becomes the armor that doesn't harden you, but strengthens you. It turns wounds into wisdom. It turns breakdowns into breakthroughs. It turns silence into voice. And that voice says, I've been through a lot, but I'm still here. And I still choose me. When you love yourself deeply, genuinely, and consistently, every relationship you have, romantic, platonic, familial, professional, begins to shift. Because self-love is not just about how you treat yourself. It also determines the energy you bring into every interaction, every connection, every bond. It becomes the lens through which you experience and express love. People often think relationships complete them. But the truth is, healthy relationships are created between two whole people, and wholeness begins with self-love. When you come into a relationship already grounded in who you are, already aware of your value, you stop seeking others to fill the voids you haven't filled yourself. You don't use people as emotional crutches or distractions from your healing. Instead, you engage from a place of fullness, not desperation. Self-love allows you to show up authentically. You don't feel the need to pretend, to perform, or to fit into someone else's mold. You feel safe being your true self, messy, beautiful, evolving. You don't suppress your needs to avoid conflict or cling to people out of fear of abandonment. You express what you feel, you communicate what you need, and you do it with confidence rather than apology. Why? Because you've already validated yourself. It also changes what you tolerate. When you love yourself, you develop a natural resistance to manipulation, guilt-tripping, or emotional games. You no longer fall for charm without character or presence without consistency. You learn to distinguish between love and attachment, between connection and codependency. You stop romanticizing potential and start honoring patterns. Self-love teaches you that someone treating you poorly is a reflection of them, not of your worth. So instead of internalizing disrespect, you remove yourself from it. Instead of chasing after someone who isn't choosing you, you choose yourself. You no longer mistake attention for affection or intensity for intimacy. You crave real, steady, safe love, because that's what you've been giving yourself. And when both people in a relationship are grounded in self-love, magic happens. Communication becomes clearer. Conflict becomes healthier. You don't tear each other down, you lift each other up. You don't fear independence, you celebrate it. You love freely without losing yourselves in the process, because you're not trying to fix each other, you're growing together. But even beyond romantic relationships, self-love impacts your friendships, your work dynamics, and even your family bond. You learn to walk away from relationships that drain you, even if they've been in your life for years. You stop tolerating passive-aggressive behavior, emotional unavailability, and cycles of chaos. You learn to say, I love you, but I love me too. And I won't sacrifice my peace for proximity. You begin attracting people who match your frequency, those who respect your boundaries, honor your growth, and show up with emotional maturity. You create relationships that are rooted in truth, not performance. Relationships that nourish, not deplete. And most importantly, relationships that reflect the love you've already learned to give yourself. Self-love doesn't guarantee perfect relationships, but it does guarantee better ones. Because when you know who you are and what you deserve, you stop settling for anything less. You stop losing yourself in others. And instead, you build connections where both people can be fully seen, fully supported, and fully free. In a world that often teaches us to seek validation from the outside, self-love is a quiet rebellion. It is the bold act of turning inward, of choosing yourself. Not out of arrogance, but out of deep understanding. It's the foundation for your peace, your power, your protection. It is what helps you set boundaries, rise after heartbreak, stand tall in your truth, and surround yourself with people who reflect your worth. When you begin to truly love yourself, you stop shrinking to fit in, stop settling for crumbs, and stop sacrificing your joy for someone else's comfort. You start speaking to yourself with kindness. You start showing up for yourself without conditions. You start attracting peace instead of chaos. Self-love is not a luxury. It's your greatest weapon against toxicity, your anchor in stormy seasons, your light when the world gets dark. And no matter who or what you lose along the way, if you never lose your love for yourself, you'll always find your way back home. So choose you every day, especially on the hard days, especially when it feels unnatural. Because when you love yourself fully, you don't just survive, you thrive.